50.
You need our uranium, you need our potash, you need our high-grade nickel. I will stockpile our high-grade nickel, that 50% of your military and manufacturing needs, your aluminum, the steel, the lumber. It will be an absolute disaster. And this is all due to one person, that's President Trump.
What happens when a neighbor cuts off the fuel in your gas tank? Canada just pulled the plug on nickel exports to the US, and now Trump's playing the unstoppable outraged card. In early 2025, amid escalating trade tensions, US President Donald Trump slapped hefty tariffs on Canadian metal imports, steel, aluminum, even electric vehicle components. In retaliation, Canada wielded its nickel supply as a weapon. Nickel, a critical metal for EV batteries, suddenly became a battleground. This isn't just metal, it's a geopolitical thunderbolt. In February-March 2025, the Trump administration invoked national security powers to impose 25% tariffs on Canadian goods. In response, Ontario's Premier Doug Ford warned of drastic retaliation. By March 4th, Canada rolled out its own counter-tariffs and threats to cut off nickel exports. The action is centered in North America. I'm talking Ontario and broader Canada versus the US automotive and energy landscape. The nickel flow, primarily from Ontario, is key to battery makers and automakers in Detroit and beyond. Trump announces steep tariffs on Canadian metals, citing security concerns. Canadians see red. Within days, Canada retaliates. $29.8 billion in U.S. goods hit with 25% tariffs, and Ontario's Doug Ford drops a bombshell. We'll cut off nickel exports. You simply cannot make EVs without it. Nickel supply, a hidden backbone for electric vehicles, stands on edge. The U.S. sources half of its nickel from Ontario. Without it, EV production could slow to a sputter. Trump's motivation is to rally the base, protect U.S. manufacturing, energy, and steel security, plus a dose of economic nationalism. Canada's strategy is to use its leverage in essential minerals. Ontario holds a nickel pipeline vital to the electric vehicle boom. If blocked, the U.S. faces supply chain chaos. This marks a new front in a decades-old interdependency. Free trade agreements like USMCA had eased tensions. Now they're fraying. Automakers scrambling to secure nickel, EV battery makers roiled, prices spike. US depends on Canada or on geopolitical rivals like China and Russia for critical minerals. As one analyst warned, without Canadian nickel, America has no viable alternative. Canada escalates. Threats to cut electricity exports to Michigan, New York, Minnesota. The energy grid itself becomes a weapon. Nickel isn't headline news, but it powers batteries in Teslas, F-150 Lightspeed trucks, and more. Canada exported only about $1.5 billion of nickel in 2024, but that's enough to torque EV production. This critical minerals tug-of-war underscores how raw materials are the currency of modern geopolitics. As of summer 2025, nickel exports remain a political threat, ready to be pulled if tariffs persist. Talks are ongoing, but mistrust runs deep. Looking ahead, will Canada formalize export bans as permanent? Will US seek allies or accelerate domestic mining? Could China fill the gap, reshaping supply chains and alliances? Here's what we've seen. A tariff spat has morphed into a raw materials showdown. Nickels exchanged for geopolitics, EV dreams against trade steel. What's clear, economics isn't just math, it's power, supply, and strategy. If you're intrigued by how elements you've never considered now shape global politics, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment. Would you keep making EVs if the metal dries up? Closing line provocative, because when nickel stops flowing, the future might just short circuit.